Hey, this is Lee Thurman. I'm talking with Eric Johnson. Eric is he's a newer Turo host than I am. I've only been doing it for a little less than a year, and he started in June of this year, right, Eric?
Yes, I did. Lee, thank you so much for having me on. And I've been looking forward to this conversation with you and another Turo host about my business and their business, especially someone more advanced like you are.
Well, I'm a little more, and not much, but you're a bright guy, and this is a pretty easy business to figure out as far as I've kind of gotten, or as far as I can tell. So, tell me how you found the idea of Turo and how it fits into what you're doing, and why you chose to get involved with a Turo business, and also, how many cars do you have? And then we'll talk. Then I'm going to ask you some questions about your car acquisition process, but kind of give us a little update as to how you got here.
Alrighty, I have an existing business up here in the high desert of California that prints stickers, and I have a building that's full of digital printers and cutters, and then an empty parking lot. And the printing business pays for everything right now. And I wanted to look at diversifying my business into an entirely separate area that was completely unrelated to printing, and using the horsepower that the printing company gives me to be able to finance this other business, um, and uh, and have it kind of as a backup in my back hip pocket, just in case something ever happened to the printing business. I have a couple of guys here that are artists, and I really like to support them in doing their art. I really want to keep paying them their salaries, and so I really wanted to help these guys get their art out, and that's the reason, the entire reason, actually, for the two businesses at this point. So I started in June, and I looked around, seeing what are the resources that I have available to me. What can I use out of that resource? I pay for the building already. I pay for the parking lot. I pay for the electricity. I pay for the insurance already in the business. So what can I? So my startup costs for a business are going to be relatively low. Um, and how much can I afford to take out of the printing business every month and put into another business? And what will that buy me? Um, I could go out and I could look at becoming a landscaper. Well, I'd have to buy so much equipment in the landscape business that I wouldn't have enough money in a month. I'd have to save up several months to do it. And I went out and started looking at YouTube and found Turo, and I found Aubrey on Turo, and a couple of other guys and gals, and looked around and said, "Hey, I can spend $10,000 or $20,000 a month buying one or two cars a month, and really growing the business from that." And I'm in the process of figuring out business credit, how that's going to work, and whether I want to leverage what I have already and move into more vehicles, or whether I want to stay as a cash only business and now just have Turo just pay for the cars that I bring in on their own. And That's kind of where I am. I bought my eighth car today, just this morning before, and I was actually a little concerned that we were going to get to this meeting because, you know, buying a new vehicle has new challenges, especially when you're buying. I bought an all electric vehicle this time around, and I've never driven nor owned an electric vehicle, and so uh, adding that to the fleet is an experience of its own.
So, Eric, let's talk a little bit about your acquiring vehicles. So, you've been in business about you're working on your fifth month now, and you've already got eight vehicles. That is about two per month. It sounds like you're buying cars that are in the price range of $5,000, $6,000. Sounds to me kind of like what you're doing. Is that right? I mean,
Uh,
so talk to me a little bit about the strategy that you have for how you're going to, what kind of cars you're going to buy and your price point. I mean, just, you know, talk to me a little bit about that. What is your Turo strategy?
Man, I wish I could buy $5,000 and $6,000 cars. I have found that here in California, at least, cars are much more expensive than I've seen other Turo hosts talking about. My price point for a car is $10,000. I will spend 12. I'd rather not, but $10,000 is my target. I have been fortunate that I have purchased some cars in the six $7,000 range, and that has brought my average down a bit. But $10,000 is at least in California, is what you're going to look at. I've gone up to $12,000 on a couple of vehicles.
So how old are the cars that you're getting, and how many miles? What's your kind of your parameter there?
My range is I don't go older than, if I can avoid it, I don't go older than 2015, and I don't go over 80,000 miles.
Okay. And why did you choose those boundaries?
Um, Really, because I want some residual value in the vehicle. When it gets to 100,000 miles, that seems to be where the big drop in vehicle price, in vehicle value, seems to be. So I want to get some value out of the vehicle before I get it. In addition to that, I've been buying vehicles with CVT transmissions, which is the continuously variable transmissions. And if those vehicles are not serviced on time, every time, they have a high proliferation of failure. So really, they should be serviced at 30, 60, 90,000 miles. And so if I'm buying at 80,000 miles or less, I might get between the 60 and 80,000 mile range. And hopefully they've been serviced once in their lifetime. And I'm catching the second service right in there, and we'll be able to keep that transmission alive much, much longer than normally would be by doing the service that needs to be done.
Okay. Yeah. So, and you've thus far, how have you? So I think you mentioned that you had an issue with one of the transmissions. Describe that. How many miles was on it, and what was the cost to get it, cost and time to get it repaired?
Um, the vehicle, the vehicle had 70,000 miles on it when I purchased. I'm sorry, 68,000 miles on it when I purchased it. Um, the vehicle failed on its first trip out
Oh my
within
gosh.
200 miles of me buying it. There was no indication that it was going to fail. There was no warning, nothing. It just stopped going.
Gotcha.
And so I had to get that. I had to get that guest into another vehicle. That vehicle was towed back by Turo. Um, we had to order a transmission from. We decided to order. I'm in a very unique position. My next door neighbor is my auto mechanic on one side, and my next door neighbor on the other side is my body guy. And then directly across the street is my car electrical guy. So I'm surrounded by these three guys that know what they're doing. They're very good at what they do. So I've been able to get in to them very quickly. My mechanic takes care of me immediately, first up, no matter what. If I have a car break one day, he's got parts in and he's fixing it the next day.
Gotcha.
And so I'm very fortunate in that. The transmission took a little longer because we decided to buy a new transmission from Nissan with a full transmission warranty. So it took 2 weeks to get that in, and he installed it the next day after it came in.
Gotcha.
So uh, I am a firm believer in the Turo business, that if you are going to join the Turo business, you need to have enough dry powder behind you, enough cash on hand to fix whatever comes your way immediately. If those cars aren't out working, if they're not out making money, you are losing money.
Well, talk to me a little bit about that. So, you've tell me if you don't mind. I'm just going to ask you to share a little bit of
Sure.
kind of a peek under the hood financially. So you just bought your eighth car. So how long have you had seven cars? I mean, has it been when did you buy your prior to today? When did you buy your last car?
That was in the beginning of the very first day of September. So I haven't bought a car in 2 months until today.
Okay, so you've been running a seven car fleet for 2 months. What's your revenue been looking like for these last 2 months? Last month and this month, and what have your expenses looked like? Are you positive cash flow, or kind of where are you at?
I'm
Talk to us about that.
probably, yeah, I'm probably just turning the corner of positive cash flow. Total so far in the 6 months, we've done about $14,500. This last month was $6,000 of that. The month before that was 4,500. The month before that was somewhere in the three-ish ballpark.
Gotcha.
And then it's kind of we've almost doubled our money every month so far.
Okay.
Um, I would estimate, and I don't know the exact number to this, that I've spent every penny of that $14,000 getting these vehicles ready to go.
Gotcha. Okay.
Even though they've been on the road, the majority of that has been that transmission. That came in at about $6,000.
Yeah, thank you for that. That was something I forgot to follow up on. So, well, that certainly is a big hit, but that's the way it goes, right? I mean, you're going to have problems with cars. Have you had any accidents, any damage yet?
I have filed minor damage claims through Turo, a couple of rear bumpers, a mirror, big scratch to one of the doors. Not anything terribly significant. No totaled vehicles yet. I expect that will be the exit strategy for these vehicles is that they are totaled.
Yeah,
Um,
well, interestingly enough, I mean, the way Turo does it, since they're not actually insurance, they just pay you. They just pay you to repair the vehicle or give you, I mean, a certain amount of money. And obviously, I haven't had a total vehicle either, but um, I've actually come out ahead on every single um, damage claim. Every single damage claim that I've had, the cost to actually repair it, I've been able to get the repairs done for less than the amount that Turo gave me. So, um, you know,
I've been very fortunate in the same. Again, because I have the relationship that I have
right,
with the body guy, with the mechanic, with the
right.
electrical and everything. I've got. Um, I send them enough business at this point that they are willing to discount for me
Right.
uh, things that I need to be discounted. So, I estimate so far that I've had about $3,000 worth of claims.
Gotcha. Okay.
Um,
So
and of that,
go ahead.
it's taken about 1,800 to actually perform the repairs.
Gotcha. Okay. So, what is I mean, talk to me a little bit about your longer term vision for I mean, based upon it, you're only 5 months, 4 months, whatever, into the Turo thing. Are you happy with the way it's going? You know, before we go to the question of what are you going to do, how much time is it taking you on a daily basis or weekly basis? How many hours? Let's just say seven cars. What's your average sort of time investment in the Turo business currently with seven cars, say for the last 2 months?
Personally, I'm very fortunate. My time investment is maybe an hour or so a week. That is only because I have staff that I've redeployed to run my Turo business for me. Um, I would estimate that their total input on seven cars is somewhere around 15 hours or so a week.
Okay. That sounds actually about right to me. So you basically talk to the customers and then they do the cleaning and now do people come to your business to pick up the cars, or do you have it somewhere else? They come to you to pick up the cars and then they return them to you.
Yeah, I
Okay.
don't do any deliveries. I
Right.
don't. This is a low end economy driven model where you have cars that are running between $30 and $45 a day. and that this is a no frills operation. The only frill that you get is that you get to deal with fun-loving people in our particular Turo situation.
Gotcha.
We are on top of the communication with the customer always. That is the most important thing, is that we are on top of that communication with the customer. So far, we have done one remote pickup. In other words, when they come in and get a key out of our lockbox system. Every other pickup, we have met the customer in person.
Okay.
We do have people drop off through the mail keys to the mail slot in the door, so when we don't have to actually communicate with them. But we are very, very good about that personal customer interaction, and that has kept us with a 5-star review for every review we've had, and we just crossed 120 trips.
Gosh, that's good. That's great. That's great. It's taken me 11 months to get to 220. So, so it does tell you, these people that have 5,000 and 6,000 trips, that's a lot of trips right there. That is. So,
Well, they have a lot of cars too. I mean,
they do. And
they have
and
25 or 30 cars.
do you do 1 day rentals, or do you limit them to 2 or 3 day minimums?
I'll do a 1 day rental. I'll do a
Okay.
6-month rental. I'll do whatever someone
Okay.
wants to do. We have 2 of our cars that are out right now that rented for 2 days. They've been out for 2 months, and they renew every day. They extend it every day.
Gotcha.
So
Longer term, at this point, 5 months in, what is your goal for your Turo business? I mean, kind of, where do you see sort of peaking, maxing out at this point?
well, I live in a very small community. And so the peak max out point will be dictated to me when my cars aren't rented every day.
Okay.
When I have a car sitting in the parking lot for 3 or 4 days, that's the point that I know that I got to stop buying cars.
Gotcha. Okay. So how many Turo hosts are there in your area, and how large is your population base that you serve?
Well, we have a fairly unique situation. The town that I live in is about 45,000 people. There have been, I've seen on the platform, 2 other Turo House, one that has a Corvette and one that has a truck. The Corvette has been not on for the last 2 months. So we are the only Turo host with more than one vehicle in our area. We also have the largest marine base in the world, in a 20-minute drive from us.
Is that Pendleton?
Nope, that's 29 Palms.
Okay. I didn't know.
Yeah,
All
29
right.
Palms. And so we are just scratching the surface of what can happen from a military base, a marine base that has 40,000 Marines on it that cycle in and out every 4 months.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that's that, and I know you didn't ask this question yet, but you're going there. Our plan for expansion is actually to open a secondary office directly south of that Marine base,
Okay.
so that we can get Marines that don't have a way off the base to be able to rent cars from us,
Gotcha.
and get them out there. So that's the next phase of what we're doing. So when we reach the limit of the number of cars we have to have here in Yucca Valley in order to support the community, we will open a 29 Palms location and see what it's going to take to service that community as well. Because there is a gap between the two. There's a 20-minute drive between the two, and you don't want to drive 20 minutes to pick up your rental car.
What's been the biggest challenge or maybe disappointment that you've encountered getting your business going?
You know what? I'm going to be really frank with you. The biggest challenge that I have seen, that I've had in my Turo business, and the biggest disappointment, is watching the YouTube videos of all the other Turo hosts out there that say, this is easy. I got this made. It doesn't cost any money. I can get 5 cars financed in one day. If I just have if I just have a business EIN and an LLC, and it doesn't cost me any money to run this business, it doesn't take any of my time. It, you know, I think that's the biggest disappointment was having watched those YouTube videos, except for yours, of course. You have been, as far as I can tell, the most honest YouTuber that is explaining the way the Turo business really works. I call it the soft underbelly of the Turo business. Um, Very few people are actually honest about what it takes to repair vehicles, to keep vehicles utilized. You've said on several occasions, "Oh, I've had to wait for 2 weeks for parts to come in and then get the vehicle fixed," and that's got to impact your utilization rate on a huge percentage. Um, I would I the the difficulty to get to 90-95% utilization on every vehicle that you have. That's the only way you really become profitable in this business, is to be able to get that utilization way above. I mean, 80% is great, but if you're not shooting for 90% utilization on your vehicles, you're probably going to have trouble being profitable unless you have a magic bag that lets you fix cars.
So, yeah, as I when I was in the 5, 6, 7 vehicle range, I had quite a few times when there would be weeks on, several weeks where I'd literally, all the vehicles would be rented. I didn't have anything to do. I'd be twiddling my thumbs and thinking, gosh, this is great. This is almost like a passive income thing. And then for me, magically, almost, when I hit 10 to 12 vehicles, when I got into that range, that's when two things began to occur. Number one, started to take a lot more time. There's a reason for that. I'll come back to it. But also number two, I never had, I have not yet ever had all 12 vehicles able to be rented and being rented at one time. There's always been one or two vehicles that have been basically in a shop or in an unrentable sort of situation or status. And so, first of all, forget about the utilization rate when you look at the number of days. Getting all of my vehicles to the point where they can all be rented is basically now kind of a challenge I didn't expect to be as pronounced as it is. And number two, there's always a wreck going on, or there's something going on with the vehicle. It could be just that, the lights are not, light bulbs are out and they need to be repaired. It doesn't have to be something major, just reasons why the vehicles, and it can be major reasons. But regarding the utilization rate, I've been pretty pleased with the utilization rate in terms of them being able to stay pretty busy. We have a very big market here in the Dallas area, and there's a lot of price competition. And if a vehicle hasn't been rented by the time it comes in and gets ready to go out, I'll knock it down for the next 7 days by $1 a day, and then just see if that changes. And usually, just 7 days, knock a buck a day off of it. Usually within about 6 to 12 hours, it's rented, and they're back out there. But anyway,
And that's one of the challenging things that Turo hosts need to really look at is, well, what is their market? How many people are in competition with them? What are their vehicles? And what is the maximum price that you should be charging for a particular vehicle before you start to compete with the Enterprise or the Hertz or the standard vehicle rental places? And finding that sweet spot of dollar range is really quite challenging. You hit the nail on the head. If the vehicle hasn't been rented or isn't going out on another trip by the time it's coming back, look at taking that price back a little bit. And I use auto pricing, and
I do too.
for the thing. I found that's very effective, except for I think the weekends are a little depressed, so I increased the weekends a little bit, especially because we have Joshua Tree National Park right out here, and people want to go out to the park and they want to, you know, that's a drive in and of itself. So, somebody that's getting an Airbnb that doesn't have a vehicle wants to go out to the park, they rent a car for a day or two.
So
And
with your vehicles parked in front of your business and people come and pick them up, you probably do a 3 hour buffer between rides and a 1 hour minimum pickup so that people can just get them right away. See, one of the challenges I have that I know a lot of other hosts will have is I don't want we operate, my wife and I run this business and we operate it out of our house, and we don't want people coming, we don't want cars parked all up and down the street and people come in knowing where we live. So we use a local rapid transit bus station. They have a huge parking lot, and we keep vehicles there, but we don't own it, and we don't have the right to keep them long term. So we're constantly having to shuttle vehicles down, shuttle them back, and that's been one of our bigger time issues. And we initially set the variables at a minimum 3-day rental, not a 1 day, a minimum 3-day rental, and somewhere between 3 and 6 hours advance notice required to be able to get the car. And then probably 6 hour buffer between vehicles, because again, they're not at our location and we can't just park them out front and wait for somebody to come get them. We have to transport them. So we have briefly tried shortening those windows in terms of time, and also shortening the number of minimum days down to 1. And then we found that there was so much time going back and forth, that it was eating even a lot more time, but we were making more money per car. So we're in the process of trying to figure out the right solution for us for a relationship with somebody that's got a business where we can put the cars, and then we have the right to leave them there and not have to worry about them getting towed. So there's a lot of Turo hosts that I think struggle with the same thing, because I've seen people talking about dropping cars off at parking lots and waiting, and you've got a very fortunate situation because you were able to start right out with the maximum sort of revenue per car and convenience to the client right out of the gate. So that's a good move. That's a good position to be in.
well, we're very fortunate that the building that we have has, I think we have a total of 35 parking spaces that we can utilize total here. And so, we can grow pretty significantly. If you think that probably you need one parking space per 5 cars that you have, if you've got them utilized correctly,
Probably about right.
we could probably get up to 100 or 120 cars really before we saw a significant problem. I don't think this community is going to support that,
Right.
but I think we could get there. I think this community is probably going to support somewhere in the 25 to 30 car ballpark.
Okay. So, all right. Well, I am, do you have any questions for me? I mean, one of the things I'm curious about is you kind of reached out to me and asked if we could chat, and you haven't really asked me any questions yet. Is there anything I could help you with?
Well, yeah, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how you are funding your Turo business. You said on one of your videos, I think you put in an initial $75,000.
Yeah, that's actually pretty much what we have funded it with. We have transferred some money from a retirement account and, bought cars, and we didn't put it all in at one time. We just kind of dribbled it in as we needed to buy cars. But, so that has allowed us at an average cost. Well, we have 12 cars, and that's about how much we put in. So, but we've also had cash flow coming out of it to put back in, and also, it supports our household to some degree as well. So yeah, we've bought all of our cars for cash. We haven't financed any. We set up an LLC specifically for the business. I'm presuming you did that as well, set up an LLC for the business or something like that,
Yes.
a corp
Yes.
or something. Yeah. So, yeah, it's all been cash cars, and we've transferred money from a retirement account. And at this point in time, I'm estimating that at the end of our first actual calendar year, because we started this, well, we bought our first couple of cars at the end of November last year, and they went out on rent right around December 1st. So December was our first month of rental revenue last year. Made $1,000 between two cars. We started the LLC this year, and at the end of this year, when we do our taxes, I'm going to estimate that we'll have somewhere between a 20 and 40% return on investment, in terms of, capital. Bottom line, I hate to use the word profit because that doesn't really mean anything,
It,
but
it doesn't
cash flow,
really, yeah,
cash flow in
it's
terms of,
cash flow.
really free cash flow, probably anywhere between a low of 20 and a high of 40%. Now, if you'd asked me that question before the months of August and September, when we spent over $12,500 on repairing cars, we hadn't spent nearly as much money on repairs, and I would have thought that our return on investment for the year would have been in the 50% plus range. But I'm thinking that that's going to be, lower. So, bottom line is it's certainly way better than we're getting in the markets, and the typical capital market type stuff that you do with your money.
Yeah, I see. And one of the things that I liked about you was the way you portrayed, especially this most recent video, what it actually costs to run these cars. When I buy a new car, I expect that I'm going to have to put at least half of the purchase price of the car into the car within the first 2 months. That's kind of what my number is. And so when you're looking at a $7,000 car, $3,500 more, hopefully you bought that car close enough to right that, in other words, below market value, that you're not exceeding the top of market value for a car that goes from good condition to excellent condition. And I make sure that I work with my mechanic when I buy a car. He goes through that car, every inch of that car. If it even looks like one of the struts, on the rear end is close to getting too old, I replace both of them. I am dedicated to having cars that are going to run for, even if they have 100,000 miles on them, run for 2 to 4 years, because I've front loaded all of that repair.
Yeah, so your approach and our approach is a little different on that. We, again, we buy cars that are between 8 and 12 years old. So our cars currently are we have a couple of 2011s, 12s, 13s, 14. We don't have anything newer than a 14 at this point. And I don't think, no, nothing. Most of them are in the 2011 and 12 range. So we're buying cars really that are 10 to 12 years old for the most part. And we buy them for around $6,000, and we plan to put about 1,000 to 1,500. We certainly like, if we can just get a car and put it out, that's, and that's great. But we have
the unicorn car.
Yeah, we'd like to find more of those, but most of the cars will require something. I mean, but we'll replace, if there's a torn leather seat, we'll repair that. If the headliners dropped down, we'll repair. I mean, obviously repair those kinds of things. But if there's a few dents on it, we don't really care. If there's, if the body panels or if they don't exactly line up a little bit, we're okay with that. I mean, we bought some cars that really need to be repainted, but they run fine. So, we're not trying to make them perfect cars, but we want them to be nicer than a rent-a-wreck. But we don't, we're at the low end of the market, and so we're not willing to put a whole lot of money into them. We want to get them creating cash flow. But if there's something that's, significant, I mean, tires, alignments, air filters, cabin air filters, repairing cosmetic interior stuff, cleaning the carpets, cleaning the upholsteries, doing some deep cleans. I mean, we go through the cars and do that kind of stuff, but we want to get them making cash flow as soon as possible. and then we'll fix issues as they come up. Is kind of been our approach. And until August, it really worked well. August and September kind of caught up with us, but I'm thinking we've made the investment now. We should have several months worth of very little in the way of maintenance issues. Hopefully, nothing severe.
That's really the exact position that I am. I hope that at this point, you know, that that I've
Hope
gotten the
springs
cars.
eternal. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, that I've gotten the cars to the point where, at least at this point, especially having taken a 2 month break from buying cars, where over that 2 month period, I really was just, pouring money into fixing cars. A lot like you were, they'd gone through the mechanic. The mechanic didn't see the problem that this particular one had, so it had to be repaired. Fortunately, those repairs have been, almost same day repairs for me. So the customer brings it back and they says, "Oh, the brakes are squeaking." I have the mechanic look at it, say, "Oh yeah, we didn't see that you needed brakes on this one. Let's do the brakes." I actually had one customer that brought a vehicle back in the middle of a trip, and she said it went kerclunk. And I said, "Well, that is helpful." And we took it over to the mechanic, and the mechanic looked at it and says, "Oh, your belt isn't aligned." And they delivered a new belt, and the mechanic put it on. He realigned the pulley, and 45 minutes later, the guest was back on their trip.
Well, you're blessed to have, all of that right there. People like Aubrey Janik that, are married to a mechanic, a guy that can do most of the mechanic work and pretty significant, apparently. That's a real blessing because you're going to end up having, and I actually, when we first got into this business, I knew that problems would occur, but I had a little bit of this fantasy of maybe we won't have any.
And again, I was talking about all those other YouTubers that don't mention it. That is the fantasy.
The fantasy is, oh, well, maybe we're going to kind of hold on real tight and hope we get lucky. And you're going to have stuff happen. Have you had anybody driving? Do you put trackers on your cars?
All of my cars have at least one tracker. Most of them have two on the vehicles. And I have a 2018 Camaro RS. And we had a hurricane out here in California.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you heard.
Yeah.
The day after the hurricane, the guy took the Camaro RS out and was driving down the freeway at 95 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't understand that hurricanes cause potholes.
Mm.
And slammed the front right driver's tire into a pothole and cracked the rim.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You just have to.
I've had. I purposefully try to buy cars that don't have real powerful engine to weight ratios. However, I do have some that do, and especially, people they drive them too fast. And I have recently begun watching sporadically watching them on the trackers, and I have no qualms about sending them a message, through Turo. Hey, you're driving the car too fast. I'm a little bit more diplomatic than that, but it's basically, hey, you're not supposed to drive the car more than 95 miles an hour anywhere. And so, be aware of what Turo's abusive use policy is, because it could end up costing you.
So the Marine that got the Camaro and took it out and got up to 130 miles an hour, you would have sent him a message?
Oh, I would have, absolutely. You didn't, huh? So you saw that?
No. I did see that because we all get alerts on our phones and tablets when there's excessive speed, and nobody here in California drives slow.
Well, we're in Texas, and it's not much different. But when you're driving a vehicle over 90 to 95 miles an hour, you're driving it too fast.
Yeah, you are. There is absolutely no question about that.
Yeah. So, all right. So, biggest surprise, if any, that you have found so far running your Turo business?
Uh, the biggest surprise is that I've had is we've bought a couple of cars from dealers so far. The biggest surprise that I've had is really how fast the dealers are eager to just take your money, um, and 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 not really provide you. The only two vehicles we've bought, except for the Camaro, the only two vehicles, the Camaro is financed because I needed an auto loan to improve the credit, the company credit. But the only two cars that we purchased have both from dealers have been uh, well, actually, I'm sorry, three cars we bought from dealers have been $12,000 each, and I expected that they were going to come off the lot, that they were going to run for a little bit, and then I was going to have to put some money into them. And I've had repairs on those vehicles just like I've had from private party
Right.
sellers. So I've now made the decision that I'm going exclusively private party.
Right.
Um, and not purchasing with dealers because the response from a dealer is always, well, you bought it,
Oh, yeah. Right. And
just
you
like it.
signed and
And
you signed the as is document. So,
yep,
you
yeah,
knew what you bought.
and so I would rather go to a private party and know what I bought. Know that I bought that car that way, and there's no recourse that I have against that private party in any way, shape, or form.
So
I would,
do you buy a Carfax on every car you're going to buy?
I do.
How many Carfaxes do you have to buy for every car you end up purchasing?
Uh, Probably two.
Okay. I
Um,
end up with between 5 and 10 Carfaxes for every car that I decide to buy. It's just kind of, builds in. I buy them, five at a time, so you get them for $20. So I
yep.
typically spend about $200 on Carfaxes in addition to the purchase price of a car. I just, that's one of those things that I didn't realize how many. I mean, it's amazing to me how many people will misstate the mileage and other things about the vehicle. And the only way I mean, I've seen odometers that have been, monkeyed with, rolled back and stuff like that. Vehicles that they claim they're clear title and they're not clear title. That kind of stuff happens a lot more than you would think. I'd say 10 to 20% of the vehicles that we are interested in, when we pull the Carfax, we find out that there's something that wasn't being disclosed. Um,
I do a lot of research besides Carfax. I'm on the Carvana website figuring out how much they'll buy the car back from me for. I'm out at the NSHA website figuring out whether there's recalls on the
yeah,
car.
I do
Uh,
that too.
you
I
know, all of that stuff before I even look at the Carfax.
Well, I do. I
So,
mean, I like you. I don't spend money on a Carfax until I've looked at the NHTSA recall list, and I also look at Kelly Blue Book. Make sure that the car appears to be reasonably priced based upon what I can determine of the condition, and then I'll. A lot of people, they don't send you the VIN number when they've got it listed on. They don't. Then I'll get the
that's a
VIN,
that's
get
an
a VIN
automatic
number and then
pass
run a
for me.
Carfax. Huh?
That's an automatic pass for me.
Yeah,
If I can't
yes.
get the if I can't get the VIN number from
Yeah,
someone either from the website or within the first three chats on Facebook
right.
Marketplace or whatever it is, if I can't get the VIN number, I'm already gone. I'm already passed.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. All right. So anything else I can answer or help you with?
Well, have you found that now you're cash flowing even with the repairs, tax title license, the insurance, the tracker fees? You're finding you're now cash flowing.
Yeah.
And did you find that at a certain number of cars that you had to have? Or was it okay? I'm cash flowing as I'm going. Uh,
Well,
you know,
we've had sporadic, I mean, positive cash flows and then negative cash flows. I mean, we've again, our approach has been, get a car fixed up so that it can go out on Turo, but we don't try to make the car perfect. So put it out and have it start making money, and then put money into fixing it and improving it as we determine that things need to be done. So we haven't been as investment heavy on the front end as it sounds to me like you have. On the other hand, I'd say we've been positive cash flow to some degree every single month since we've started, if you don't include buying the cars. I mean, so we haven't recouped the car cost, but aside from the car cost itself and the initial tax title license stuff, I mean, basically say capitalize that. Everything else is revenue versus expenses. We've been positive cash flow pretty much every month except for the month of August, because August was a huge expenditure month. We actually spent more in August than we brought in. We came in September, we spent almost as much as we brought in. And in October, we're back to positive cash flow. Not like it needs to be, but back to positive cash flow. And so we've really pretty much positive cash flowed every month.
My investment strategy has been a little bit different than most people's. I have determined that I'm going to throw as much money as it takes from the time I started until the end of this year, until the 31st of December. I'm going to throw as much money as it takes to get 12 rock solid cars. I have had the experience of of a guest being out on a trip and calling me and saying, my car just died in the middle of the freeway and I don't know what to do. I've had that experience. I never want to have that experience for myself, and I never want to have that experience for a guest. They were 150 miles away from us on their way to a weekend. He had gotten leave from the Marine base, and we called Turo. We worked with Turo. Turo actually got him another car in that area, and they towed our car back to us. And the guy gave us a 5-star review for a 4-hour trip. But we were on top of it. But I never want a guest to have to go through that ever. My car is broken. I don't know what to do. What do I do? I'm in. I've driven out to Phoenix and I don't know how to get back.
Right. Yeah, you get a lot more of those long distance things than we do. Most of our trips are in the Metroplex, but we do have people that have gone, some distance away. But I mean, we don't want that to happen either, and it hasn't really happened. We've had one person be a couple hundred miles away and run over a road hazard and blow out a tire, and the spare actually didn't fit the rim. So there was a mismatch that we hadn't checked. So we had to, there was a big problem with that. But yeah, we don't want that kind of stuff to happen, obviously.
Isn't it amazing? Your checklist before you put a car on a road gets longer and longer and longer and longer and longer.
It does. And at some point you just have to say, and this is me, at some point you just have to say, I've got to start making money with it. So I think we pull that, we reach that point sooner than you do, I think, based upon our conversation.
I think that's probably true. But my overwhelming concern has been every last guest gives us a 5-star review. What do I have to do to make that happen?
Yeah. Well, you're certainly doing what it would take, which is significant upfront investment, go through the car with a fine-tooth comb and fix everything. So kudos to you. All right. Well, hey, you got any last questions before I call the time on this?
I think I will probably think of a whole bunch and I'll send them to you by email.
Okay.
But again, Lee, I really appreciate the way you have done Turo videos, and really the the understanding that it's cash flow, not profit. Um, and that's what's keeping your business going is cash flow, not necessarily profit. There will be a time for profit. There will be a time to determine when what is profitable and what is not profitable. But it's not in the first year of doing this business.
No, 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 no. I totally agree with that. All right. Well, Eric, it's been a pleasure. I'll look forward to being in touch again in the future, and good luck on, the rest of this year. Let me know towards the end of the year if you hit 12 cars. I'd like to, just stay in touch and, stay in touch.
I sure will. 12 cars, 200 trips by the end of the year. That's the goal.
I think
And
you'll do it.
we got a little ways to go, but we're going to get there.
But it was great talking to you. I'll talk to you again soon. Cheers.
Alrighty, very good.